What is going on, everyone, and welcome to the Destination Experience podcast, where we talk about all things real estate, travel, and hospitality. My name is Dallas, and I'm joined by my co host, Taylor Fellman. And today we're going to be talking about what is going on with real estate fraud. And I wanted to set the stage and really just talk about what is real estate fraud. So, Taylor, did you want to start that conversation? Just what is real estate fraud in
Sure.
general?
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, real estate fraud is on the rise, and it finds ways to disguise itself in many different forms. So the most common real estate fraud you'll probably come across in your day-to-day life is, from a consumer standpoint, definitely escrow fraud, and that usually um, finds its way out through people impersonating realtors, people impersonating escrow agents. Essentially, their goal is to get your funds, and instead of wiring it to escrow, they want to wire it to them. That's probably the most common form of real estate fraud the average person would find themselves in. The bigger real estate fraud topics we're going to cover here in a little bit are more of the money laundering, misrepresentation, mortgage fraud, illegal flipping, Ponzi schemes. Ponzi schemes are probably the most common in the real estate fraud space just because of the nature of you tell your friends, hey, give me six figures. I've got this amazing real estate project we're working on. We're going to take your money. We're going to put it in this project. You're going to be an easy double your money. And then they take that money and they use it for personal expenses. And then they go out and get someone else's 100K to cover the 100K you gave them. And the cycle repeats itself. And that's kind of the basis of what happened with one of the topics we're going to get into. They took that idea to quite an extreme over in Vietnam. Gabe or Dallas, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I guess I'll touch on kind of what you just spoke on with the real estate fraud and kind of using the funds specifically for personal or just anything outside of what they said they were going to use the funds for the specific real estate deal. I want to clarify and say that if you actually convince someone to get 100K invested in a rehab or some real estate deal and it just turns out to not make money, that's not real estate fraud. That's not what we're talking about today. That might just be a bad investment. It could be fraudulent marketing if they promised or guaranteed a return. That's for sure not a great situation at all. But someone that just says, "Hey, do you think this will work if we put 50K into it?" And it looks like this afterwards and we do these types of things. Yeah. And it just doesn't work out. That's not fraud. That's just a bad investment, and hopefully still you still own that property and you're in a better spot than some of these people we're talking about that they invest money and those funds do not go towards the transaction at all. And I'll start pulling up the cases here, but I guess Taylor, take your pick. Do we want to start, international or in our backyard here?
Well, let's start with that international case because, like I was saying, that lady basically took it to the extreme where she started with this big project, hundreds of thousands of dollars, used the money for whatever, lavish lifestyle, personal expenses, had to go raise more money to cover her basis, and a couple $1 billion in false money later, and they finally catch her. And
And yeah, this one's extreme. Um, Usually stuff like this gets, snuffed out in like three or four transactions or people coming out. Um, but this one appears to have gone on for decades. And what I've found recently, and it might not be mentioned in this article per se, but it appears as though she had some sort of coups with different government officials as well to kind of keep this train alive. And she was getting some, I don't know if she was lobbying herself or if they were in on the upside of it. But there's a few people that have stepped down in the Vietnam government related to this case as well, that I don't think is mentioned in this article. But yeah, this is an extreme case of, hey, I'm going to use your money for this investment, but actually, no, I'm going to buy a car for myself. Um, Anything else you want to talk about as it relates to this
Um,
real estate fraud case?
you know, there's not much to go into other than how egregious this was. I think we can talk about what not to do, or from a consumer standpoint, how to um, avoid ever being involved in anything like this. I think if, and we've touched on it a little bit, it's just if someone's bringing a real estate investment to you and they're pitching it to you as a win-win guarantee, if you get a sense of that in any way, shape, or form, probably best to run away or at least do major due diligence. Just because you would never want yourself to be involved in something like this, where at the end of the day you just get screwed. Like these victims, there's no reconciliation for them. That's why it's so bad. That's why she's getting sentenced um, to death, because everyone lost everything. So you just don't,
Yeah,
you know, you can learn from things like this, and take this case as what to look for in the future.
yeah, exactly, and that's why I zoomed in on this part here. We didn't discuss that this real estate fraud case also not only was billions of dollars large, but is ending in a death sentence for this person that committed it. And in the same zoom in, you can see that she was the one bribing those government officials. And even though they weren't necessarily in on it because they took the bribe and helped, they're getting life sentences, which is, again, it feels extreme. You know, the 12 billion made sense for maybe certain people that are like, again, like thinking of not great thoughts because of losing all that money, but it looks like they're just really serious over there in general because the government officials getting a life sentence for taking bribe money.
You know,
You know, in
it's
the U.S., that's part of the process. That's that is part of how you play over here. So that's funny to see.
speaks right. It speaks to the cultural differences. I think your word,
Right.
your word, and how you treat people means so much um, to them, and maybe we should learn something from that, because clearly in the U.S., money talks, and you can do about whatever you want in that department. But yeah, it's they're very loyal people, and they don't take this kind of behavior lightly. So gotta be careful if you ever see anything like that coming your way.
Yeah. I mean, great transition to talk about our next person up here.
Our
So
local
our local friend, our local fraudster. Going
HGTV star.
Yeah, going from international to Bay Area, sunny California with this one. Um, I guess Taylor, I'll let you talk about this one more specifically since you did a little more reading on this one.
Right. So this is interesting. At first glance, it doesn't seem that bad. I think it might. The article kind of reads he it was a $10 million property that he essentially misrepresented. It's a lot deeper than that. He did a lot of things. He's ordered to pay $10 million in restitution, which is pretty harsh. And he uh, I'm not sure exactly what his sentence is, how long it is, but regardless, he's was convicted immediately. So what he did here, he did a handful of different things. Number one, he misrepresented his flips. He over budgeted massively for flips. And what did he do with those over budgeted funds? Well, he bought cars, he bought properties for himself, he took the money, and then he used that leverage to go get more money, more investments. And so the Ponzi scheme is born, and he kept doing that. He used his influence, his HGTV, the TV show, everything to maximize profits, to just cheat people out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so all of this stuff started to compound, and there was just a lot going on. He pretty much did everything under the sun except for, well, I was going to say wire fraud, but I guess wire fraud is involved as well because he had people wiring money. So pretty bad across the board. And again, it's hard because you think a guy on HGTV, he's likely very trustworthy. A lot of these people, they're really, really good at earning your trust, and you have to watch out and be careful. Do your due diligence, follow your gut, and again, if something's too good to be true, best to stay away because, again, don't want to get involved in something like this. Invest in people that you trust, or simply just invest on your own. That's my takeaway. What about you?
Yeah, really similar takeaway. Like someone can be a good entertainer and even worth your time to listen to, but not necessarily worth your time to work with or invest with. You know, someone could be a good educator in one area and be reputable even and well liked. Um, but doesn't mean that they're, the best at everything. And you should be wary if like the entertainer designer starts giving, financial advice. Not to say that this person wasn't already an investor beforehand and it's kind of a different case, but still there's just layers of things that you need to look at with real estate, and just like investments in general. Any investment, anytime you're trying to spend money over, regular groceries or travel type expenditures, you want to make sure you know where your money's going. Also, 4 years is what Homeboy is going to jail for, and just like you said, just under 10 million in restitution for all that. Our first reaction was it could be not that bad because of the price of homes in San Francisco. Like it
Right.
could be like some strategy they did on the back end of development that they thought was cutting edge and cost savings, but turned out to be not so great. But no, this was pretty
A little
intentional
bit worse
when
than
we
that.
dug under it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty deliberate and like taking large sums of money at the construction phase of the real estate too, which is like kind of the hard money involved usually in the transaction. You're usually not loaning that part out. And so that was the part he was deciding to inflate and take away, which makes it even more painful than other types of real estate fraud, just because that's the cash out of people's pockets today. Um,
Right.
I guess on that note, we can wrap on other thing. We've touched on a few, but just things in general to look out for when it comes to real estate fraud. What are the current like top five, top three big real estate fraud plays that people are using?
Right. So I will say right off the bat, two big things. Number one, if you are a buyer and you are getting close to closing and you have funds that you're bringing to closing, which you likely will, even if you have a zero down loan, you're going to have to pay for escrow fees. So, a couple things to look out for. People will impersonate realtors' email addresses. And when I first heard about this, I thought, why would someone want to steal my email address? What are they going to do with it? Like, there's nothing in there. Well, guess what? They can impersonate me as your realtor, take my email address, email you saying, hey, send the funds here. And then you, maybe not, maybe being blindsided or being trusting of me, you're going to send me those funds, but it's not me. It's a hacker who hacked my email address and is impersonating me. Or they will impersonate title, escrow. they'll take their email or they'll call you. So um, always, 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 it's very, very simple to avoid this. If you get an email from an agent or a call from anyone at all, do not accept anything from anything inbound. Always make the call yourself. Pick up the phone, call your escrow officer directly, or email your escrow officer directly and tell them to call you. Regardless, um, if you just simply get a hold of them, you're going to be fine. If you listen to any inbound, whether that's a phone call, email, you're putting yourself at risk. So just use a little
Yep.
common sense, a little bit of um, due diligence, because yeah, it's scary. And there are people, I mean, it sadly happens every day. There are people who lose six
Yeah.
figures just like that. And guess what? You can't get it back. You actually can't. It's absolutely horrible. So do your due diligence at all time. Don't trust anybody ever. Call the title company directly, and you'll be fine. Uh, that's my big one. The other one I would point out would be misrepresentation, and that can be simply a property's condition, the value, the ownership status. Maybe there's a dispute between where the property line ends. Stuff like that is very common. And again, it all comes down to your own personal due diligence. And I will add one thing, from a realtor's perspective, I'll always do my best to help my clients in terms of representing what the property looks like. But at the end of the day, you as a buyer, you have to do your own personal due diligence, because I can tell you one thing, but if the day it closes, something material changes, that's not on me because I can't promise things for you. You've got to figure that out for yourself and verify that. So it just goes back to you can't trust anybody. You've got to really be on your own side and do your due diligence at all costs. Consult with your realtor for help along the way. Um, but just take matters into your own hands, because that way you're not going to be hung out to dry and you're not going to be disappointed. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts? Those are the two big ones in my eyes.
Yeah, no, those are huge. The escrow stage of any transaction, that's like where the biggest funds are transferred. That's where they want to intercept. They've got the most plays and like fake emails, and down to even understanding if you've called or are at the right stage to do wire instructions in the transaction. Like that's the scariest one. That's where like I've like daily people right now, someone today has lost hundreds of thousands of dollars to that because they're super realistic. But I really liked your just like outbound simplification of the whole process. Like, yeah, when you get down to the last few days of the transaction, yeah, only call outbound, especially when you're doing things that you know you're going to share credit card, social, or banking information, because that's crucial to not only keeping the home. If you get robbed right before, not only are you not getting that money back, but now you can't even get into the home at this point, because it's contingent on those funds being in there.
Right.
So it's just like extra crucial. I like the simplification of go outbound with everything. Don't let someone's inbound message fool you, because they are down to basically the same, unless you're going to take the time to open it up, like the Gmail in a specific desktop folder so you can see the true Gmail. That's, and even then there's opportunity to hack that. So I like the outbound strategy a lot for looking at real estate fraud. Honestly, too, another medium that you didn't call what would be mail. Once you get into a home, the real estate fraud doesn't stop there. You're going to get at least 20 home warranty fraud attempts right when you move into your house. I mean, maybe 30 home warranty attempts right when you move in. Like, oh, you just got a house. Perfect. Let's get you a home warranty that doesn't exist. So, another general, like, you could probably apply this to other industries, not just real estate, but just like confirming that a business exists. Like, you look at their marketing material and go, is this a real business? And like look them up, verify them. Same with any investment, and same with any property rental. That's one we didn't talk about, but super common, people posting fake rentals, and their goal is to get the deposit, because that's like the first stage, and people are comfortable nowadays leasing out a place sight unseen. Pictures are good enough, you can tell reviews, and if you do the right research, you can do it right. You can confirm, yeah, this is a real large company. I called their phone outbound, right? And it was answered on their line. And then I had email communication with the same person or a similar person. You can be pretty confident there. But unless you have those like actual interactions, like, and it's not Facebook Marketplace and they're like, send deposit before you can get the keys and you're all good to go. I wouldn't do any of that. Like, you got to either meet the person in person if you're seeing them on a Facebook Marketplace thing, or they've got to be a registered company and you went through like an online portal with that company that is the correct website. But yeah, that's another one to look at. Airbnb, it happens sometimes, but they've got some pretty powerful algorithms now that can tell if a property is not owned by the person they shouldn't own them, or if it happens within a state, they're just banned forever. So not as common anymore, has happened, but the common one is long-term rentals, a fake address. Some people do a little more research to make sure it's like a real rental. So just make sure you're going through a legitimate application process, either with a true local that owns it or a true property management company that's registered. And they might have bad reviews because property management's tough, but as long as they're registered and their Better Business Bureau rating is decent, they might have bad Google reviews because everyone hates their property manager, but as long as they're a real business, you should be fine. 2 stars, that happens. Customer service in that industry. I think that does it for me, though. Taylor, are we missing anything on real estate fraud scams going out there? I mean,
those are the
probably
big
a
ones.
gluttony of investor stuff that you can get deep with, but we can just call that, general investor due diligence.
Yeah, I would say the big three that you will run into in your average day-to-day life is the long-term rental thing is definitely real.
Oh
Rentals
yeah,
on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, that's actually a very legitimate thing.
oh yeah,
Number
very common.
two, the wire fraud, very, very real. And number three, misrepresentation of properties. That unfortunately, yeah, happens left, right, and center. So those are the three things you can really look out for in your day to day life. And like we said, just really comes down to use common sense. Just think, be critical at all times, be on your feet, and just do your due diligence and be safe, and you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I guess on that note, guys, thanks for listening to the Destination Experience podcast. If you like real estate, travel, hospitality, and all those types of things, consider subscribing, give us a comment, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Good.
Peace.
See ya.